morning we are here to talk about motherhood in the restaurant industry and how to navigate it, how to pull it off, frankly, presented by BentoBox. This is a subject that is very dear to my heart, personally and professionally. I'm a single mother of a 6-year-old daughter, and when I started this job, she was 6 months old. And although I don't work in a restaurant, I am in restaurants most evenings, and I know the delight and the challenge of trying to reconcile that. And professionally, you know, the James Beard Foundation, one of our core missions is around gender equity, and we do an awful lot in the support of women in the industry in terms of getting more women into leadership and ownership positions. We support women throughout their careers, from early scholarships to career development to our signature program called Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Program. Anna and Petrushka, alum, existing member, I don't know if there's anybody else here, I think I saw some other folk, which is really supporting women who are owners, looking how to increase their scale and footprint and the long-term viability of those businesses. So, as I said, it is a real priority for the James Beard Foundation. And we know that one of the biggest barriers to women's progression and having sustained leadership positions is the challenges about having a family in this industry. The conditions do not lend themselves to it. So this feels like a very germane and important conversation. I personally will be scribbling down insights and recommendations and advice. And it feels very appropriate as we are in Women's History Month to be double-clicking on this incredibly important subject. So I'm going to hand over to Lauren Byrd from BentoBox, who's going to be leading our panel this morning. Lauren is the VP of Customer Services, Customer Success, which is a huge remit, but is essentially looking after your 14,000 plus restaurants to ensure that they're really thriving with BentoBox, and I'm sure you'll talk a bit more about that. But also, you have first-hand experience of the restaurant world. You opened 2 Byrd's Taphouse in Georgia, so you reconcile all worlds. And I'm going to hand over to you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Byrd. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I can say a brief few things about myself because I can assure you I'm not as exciting as these 4 women I have the honor of being here with today. But as mentioned, so I'm the VP of Customer Success at BentoBox. And so the 5 teams under our umbrella are customer success, customer support, customer onboarding, production, and operations. And so I previously came from the restaurant world. So I had my first restaurant job when I was 15. And I started at BentoBox 7 years ago. And up through then, until then, I was in the restaurant world. So I have a 2.5-year-old, 2 and some change-year-old daughter named Rowan. And so I have only parented in this new sort of role and world. Not to say it's easy, but I'm very excited to hear today from these women of the extra challenge of navigating in the restaurant space with kids. So I'm very, very happy to be here. So we have some wonderful women. I have their bios here so I don't mess anything up because it's very extensive backgrounds here. So to my left, we have Petrushka Bazin Larsen. She's the co-founder and co-owner of Sugar Hill Creamery, which I'm sure you've all been to. It's Haarlem's first family-owned small batch ice cream shop. And then outside of Haarlem, you can find the ice cream at dining rooms at the Met, and they also ship nationwide. And I think we might have some today, right? So very exciting. She's also a professor at CUNY and coaches women looking to make career changes and start businesses. So hit her up after this. So thank you for being here. Next to her, we have Hillary Sterling. She's executive chef at Siamo, Union Square Hospitality Group restaurant. Luckily for us, we're very proud that USHG is one of our partners at BentoBox. She's had a long career in kitchens. She's worked with Bobby Flay at Mesa Grill and Bolo, in the butchery department at Lupa Osteria Romana, under Chef Missy Robbins at Avoce, and as the executive chef and partner at Vix. So very, very extensive resumes here.
Best beans in town.
I know, I'm getting hungry saying all these things. Okay. We have, Mediterranean food, ice cream, cooking. I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on here today. And so down the line here in the beautiful red, we have Anna Gordon. She is the founder and CEO of the Good Batch Bakery, which she started in 2010. Hopefully you were able to grab a cookie. If not, grab one after. The Good Batch is one of the largest wholesale cookie distributors in NYC. And she even started her own line of CPG ice cream sandwiches in 2019. She also, outside of running these successful businesses, is a James Byrd Foundation Women's Leadership alum. So thank you so much, Anna, for being here. And last but not least, we have Jenny Goodman. She's the co-founder and CEO of Tilit, the fashion-forward workwear brand for the culinary and hospitality industry, which was much needed. Much needed. She also hosts the Heritage Radio podcast called Opening Soon. So technically she should be sitting where I am, but I will get notes from you after, which talks about the business of opening a restaurant. So welcome everyone. I'm so glad you're here. And so I think if we can sort of go down the line and you can all introduce yourselves a little further, I think it'd be great to hear how many children you have, how old they are, and then something I really wanted to selfishly get out of today is what does your support system look like today? Because I know that's really challenging. Sometimes I have a hard time. I'll find friends who are in a similar industry, but they might not have children, or I'll have mom friends who are not working the same hours I am, and it's kind of hard to find that support system that you can really resonate with. So I'll pass it off to you first,
okay.
Petrushka. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Petrushka Bazin Larsen. I have 3 kids. My eldest is 11, our second is about 8, and the third is 6. 6. Okay. You can say everything you need to know is in that pause.
Exactly.
So we have 4 stores and 3 children, and it's like having 7 children. And because we're in ice cream, a lot of our employees are also really young too. So it's actually like I'm a mother of 37 children. And so let's see. In terms of, should I go into the support or?
Yeah. That'd be great.
So my background actually is in museums and art education and community-based organizations. And I've been in New York for the majority of my life. But prior to opening Sugar Hill Creamery, I spent my working years really learning how to work with people and how to build connections and networks. And I really extend all of that learning into how we build our company, but then also how I raise my children. And I think having a business, being an entrepreneur and being a mother, there's so many parallels. There's so many like inner reckonings that you have, as well as like challenges and also highs, like really high highs, right? But the way that I parent is by building communities of people to support, that I can support and that support me. And so, and we think about like the concept of networking, which, you kind of get like that heavy feeling like, ugh. And networking truly is about an exchange of resources and information and connection. And so our support system is not one where we are joined by our mothers, okay? We'll get to that soon, right? But like our parents don't live here, while this has been my home for the majority of my life, like I've really built an ecosystem of support from people that I have met along the way. And in doing that, it caused a lot of, it's forced me and I think other people just to open up and be vulnerable, because vulnerability is the glue to any sort of connection. So I am a deep extrovert, and I realize that can be, if you're not an extrovert, can feel like a lot, but I will talk to you in the grocery store. I will follow up with you if I see you. Didn't I see you at the grocery store? Hey, let me get your number. And then like now we're chatting and now we're part of each other's lives. And I think in our business also we're trying to turn strangers into neighbors, neighbors into friends, friends into family. And so I live by that same principle.
I love that.
You're wonderful.
Yeah. Can I be your friend?
I need more friends.
Happy to, yeah.
Oh, Hillary.
I'm Hillary. My wife and I have a almost 2-year-old named Rowan, randomly enough.
Oh my gosh, we didn't realize
And
that. That's so cool.
we didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl, and it was going to be Rowan regardless.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
So he'll be 2 next month. It's a crazy world. I feel you, the same thing. We have 75 people in our kitchen, and I feel like it's almost easier to go home sometimes, but also it's the same thing. It's like, it's almost easier to go to work sometimes as well. That not being able to rationalize, and that, like, I feel like that's also a part of a lot of the age in the kitchens right now. they're still missing that, as well as like the 2-year-old conversation. So, while 2-year-old conversations are similar, every day I feel like I just had this conversation with my child and my chefs. I am confused, but they're getting there. They're lovely. They're all lovely. And actually, my team really cares for Rowan. They're like, when are you going to bring him back to the restaurant? I'm like, guys, it's a disaster when I bring him to the restaurant. He like runs in the kitchen and like there's no fear of the fire that's burning there. If you've never been to Siamo, we have a large wood-burning grill, and he's like obsessed with it, like most kids are. And we, like, my wife really enjoys, she longs for community. And I feel like I live in this, like, huge community every day, and we feed so many people that, like, when I get home, I'm like, she's like, oh, we have plans this weekend. And I was like, great. Awesome. Cool. I'm so excited about that. And, so we need more community, and yes, I should do that more often. We don't have, my mom lives in Florida, and her parents live upstate, and they do come down and assist us in so many ways. It's their first grandchild, so they are so like, they met us in Charleston last month. They are like, they want to be a part of his life so much, but they're not like a phone call away, unfortunately. My wife's going to Parma, Italy for 12 days, and it's her second trip in a while, in like the last year, and it's going to be him and I and a babysitter, and we will trek through it and have a blast.
Got this, Mama.
I lasted through the last trip. It was like 9 days, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And but it is great. But we do need more support.
Yeah.
So Anna, and I have 2 daughters. They're on the cusp of turning 6 and 9. Roxy and Josephine. And I think our network of support is cobbled together. It's evolved over the years. My family's not nearby. My in-laws are an hour and a half away. And so we try to, maybe like once a month, we'll escape the city and go up there, and just, it's so nice to be in a home that I'm not responsible for. And like the fridge is full and it's clean, and then, so all that's nice. So that's a bit of a network, but otherwise, it's just my partner and I in New York City with these kids. And we've, in the beginning, we did the nanny until they were old enough to latch into a daycare, and we could find a daycare. And now they're in the public school system, and we just heavily lean on that. And they're in school, and then we pay extra for aftercare and their little activities here and there. But it's been being crafty with that, and then also just building a community both in our. See, I like to have kind of like my work life, and there's the whole community there, and they love it when they bring the girls in. But again, they're like running around, and there's ovens, and like they're both charmed by it, but they're also like, can we get these kids out of here? And like, but bring them back. And so it's this balance there. So we try, and then we have back in our neighborhood, we've really cultivated the friendships and other families and parents, and that is just invaluable. And while we don't rely on those friends to watch our kids, because we're all working families. It's just good to know that there's other, people that we can emotionally and rely on and get together.
Yeah.
So that's our network right now.
Nice.
And I'm Jenny. I also have 2 daughters, Mally and Izzy, 7 and 4. And I feel you about it's easier sometimes going to work, because getting the coat on the 4-year-old this morning was basically an Olympic sport to get out the door. And I was like, thank God she's gone. But anyways, that's not neither here nor there. Everybody's like laughing because my mom is here. So when you talk about what the support system is, I am, yes, very blessed. I've already volunteered you to watch Hillary's 2-year-old, just so you know. Sorry about that. We are neighbors. We're neighbors, so Grandma's daycare in Williamsburg is open for service. But jokes aside, it does take a village, and we have cobbled together things through the years. I will say support system, my partner, we are 50-50 in our business. We are 50-50 with the childcare. We are 50-50 everywhere. So that is a huge blessing for being part of the business or being part of the village, and just having that open dialogue. Like today, my oldest daughter is homesick, and I was like, it's on you, bud. And last week, my other daughter was homesick, and that was on me. So it's like this, hey, we just got to all pitch in. We have babysitters, several of them, five deep. We have grandma. We have my brother and sister-in-law down the street. And I think the biggest thing that I've realized is like, just don't be shy about asking for help. Like I've called my mom at 7 o'clock in the morning, SOS, I have a big meeting. The kids are sick, get your ass here by 9. She had an Uber, and she luckily obliges, but sometimes it's not always that easy. She's playing Mahjong, so I'm going down the list. I'm like, who can I call next? No, I'm just kidding. We are super blessed, but yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is like, you have a village, don't be shy about asking that village for help, because people do want to help you and do want to support you, and yeah, that's what we've found.
Yeah. These stories just reminded me of sort of that switch you have to make, right? Because my toddler's in this phase right now where she doesn't want to ever change her clothes or diapers at any point in the day. So every morning, it's a struggle to get the PJs off and get her dressed for school, daycare. And then every night, it's a struggle to get the PJs on. And it's like that Groundhog Day where I'm like, I've had the same twice a day, every day. I'm explaining to her why we have to change our clothes, you know? And then sometimes in the morning, you know, it's like, wrestling the wild hog to get the clothes on, and then my husband's frazzled and stressed, and then there's chaos, and then I sort of just like instantly turn to my team like, hi, how's everyone doing today? Are we feeling great? You know, and so I think as a leader too, it can be hard when you're sort of going from like a family chaos moment into being there for your team. So I'm curious to hear from all of you, how has motherhood changed your leadership style? And Anna, I know you have your clear management style that you sort of talked about. Can you maybe kick us off with some of that?
Yeah, and I also, Jenny, thank you for mentioning, because I also am partners with my life partner and home partner are the same, and it's very 50-50, so that's just a good baseline. But I think when I first became a parent almost 9 years ago, and I'm sure so many mothers can relate to this, you're just instantly unburdened by just so much, for lack of a better word, like bullshit that you're carrying around, or expectations, or like things that you owe people, and like a layer of that kind of at least temporarily gets removed. And I really tried to hold on to that. So I'm just, if I'm at work, I am there to work. There's no time to dilly-dally. I'm being super present, because then I know that there's a hard out that I am out for. And so one thing that I've helped over the years, and that I'm really practicing recently, is kind of having this, treating my work life and my family home life as really both very sacred, but also very separate. And so at the end of my work week on a Friday, I try and be really diligent about just writing, like doing a bit of a brain dump and getting all the things that are swirling around your head during the week. And so that's everything from like things I have to do next week to like an issue that might be eating at me that I can't, whatever it is. And so I write these things down and then like kind of turn that in my to-do list for Monday. So I'm leaving work with a very clear, organized visual of my thoughts, right? And so that when I go home, I am just there for it. I'm there for these kids. I'm there for my partner. I'm there for myself to recharge over the weekend. And if like a thought comes up, like, oh, that like conversation I have to have, I'm like, no, I have faith that I have written that down. I will deal with that on Monday. It's waiting for me. Mm-hmm. And then the flip side of that is on Sunday nights. I literally did this last night. I take, even if it's 5 minutes, I try and give myself a little more time, but if whatever it is, to kind of shift my mind back into the workspace. And I like put my kids down, and then I'm like, okay, I have a really big week coming up and I can do it. I know I have my thoughts organized. I just did this weekend, and it's like creating division between them. In an ideal world, it gets hairy, it gets messy sometimes, but that's like my structure that I'm kind of holding on to find balance between mothering and being a leader.
Yeah. And that it's something that would be so healthy to do even if you weren't a parent, but sometimes we're not forced into it until we have to be there for our family and our kids. Yeah. I wish I would have learned that 20 years ago.
Same.
Yeah. Anyone else? How has motherhood changed you as a leader?
I mean, I feel like there's a moment when I walk in through the kitchen doors. I mean, our restaurant's very open, so I walk in the front door, and all of a sudden, I just have to be on.
Yeah.
And they know that, if Rowan is sick, I am home.
Yeah.
I will go in at 5 o'clock, and I will make sure that I give my wife ample time. I'll put him down for a nap, and then she can work, up until 3 o'clock, and then I will do that. And there's no peeps. There's no they will all step up because I am so on with them when I'm there. One of the things we do in kitchens, we manage in real time. There's no I'll get back to that later. If it's salty, it's salty. If it's undercooked, it's undercooked. We can't stop. We never can turn it off. So there's a moment at the end of the night when I get in the elevator. Sometimes I ask Melissa for a glass of wine, and the door's shut, and I'm just like, okay. And that silence really that's what sets us. And then I get home, and I'm like, okay, I got to pack lunch. I got to do this. But that 45 minutes from that moment to when I get home, that is my time.
Yeah.
But really trying to understand how to manage people from afar is getting a lot easier and better because you've built that trust. They know that my son comes before them, even though sometimes I waver and I shouldn't probably a little bit more. And they need to lean into that, and then I need to learn how to trust people more. And that's what this next chapter we opened Siamo and we had a baby within those 6 months of opening. I had no choice but to trust people. Thankfully our Pete Wells review was done, so we were fine, and we could just walk away for a little bit. I could breathe, but other than that, I had to hand over this baby that we just opened, and my wife calls the onion torta our first baby, which is fair, and it was, and she basically ate it throughout her whole pregnancy.
Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah.
There was a lot of onion tortas in our house, and when we had the baby, they sent an enormous amount of onion tortas to the house, and I was like, guys. But I think
Does Rowan like them now?
Unfortunately, he has a dairy allergy.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's brought a lot of shame to our house.
He had too many onion tortas, and he's like, I can't.
Well, my wife imports cheese for Italy, so it's really
unfortunate. Yeah,
it's really a shame, but we're working on it. We're feeding him dairy.
Modern medicine will get him there at some point. Yeah,
we will get him there. It'll be fine. So,
well, it is after this past. I'm sure a lot of moms here can attest. After this past winter of COVID, RSV, flu, colds, stomach bugs. It's kind of amazing the five of us are
all
here.
Yeah. We might leave with something.
And we are not. We're actually all here. It's kind of, So I think this is a good segue into a topic I like. Let us know about how your leadership styles have actually influenced parenting with your family meetings, because I find this amazing and fascinating.
So, to answer the first question, I think that sometimes when we're at work, we're just like, you're an adult, I'm an adult, I said this, and you're supposed to do that, or you told me this, and then I'm supposed to do that. And the reality is we're all just imperfect humans, and we're very big children.
Yeah.
And so the patience and grace that we give our kids when they don't get it on the first try is actually very needed in the workplace. Yeah. And I think as a leader, if we can really hold on to that. I mean, we're all striving, we're adults, we have our motor skills, but we're striving for, perfection or really good greatness. I'm very cautious to use the word perfect, right? Because it can handicap you. But if we are giving the same grace to our team that we give to our children, then wow, what an amazing team we can build, full of trust and care and good work. So that, I think, seeing the parallels, because I'm a mom now, I'm like, oh, okay. That has shaped the way that I delegate, the way that I hopefully inspire and motivate progress in our company. As far as our meetings, I've brought our sort of work concepts home. So, you have your daily stand-up, or you have your weekly, meeting with your, back of office team, or whatever, I brought those things home because I was like, our house is chaos. There's 3 children, they've got extracurricular activities, some are doing after school, they have different academic needs. There's so much going on. And I was like, I just need a metronome at home to keep this whole crazy thing together. And so I believe in a weekly meeting, and I have instituted it in varying degrees of frequency. So we have a family meeting that we do on Wednesday nights, and we have a 4 C's agenda. There's a set agenda. We talked about this in our JBF, our well program, just having set agendas and the power of that in a work setting. But at home, it also creates this amazing expectation of routine and trust, because with a baby, you learn how to put them to sleep so they can build good sleep hygiene. So we all thrive on routine, and routine can be boring, but like, it's also really good, you know? And so this weekly meeting that we do on Wednesday nights, we connect, or we compliment, sorry. And so we shout everybody. Everybody has to say something good about each person in the family, something that they
Love that
admire,
part.
or something
Yeah,
that
so
like
sweet, yeah.
is amazing, or a gratitude. And then we go into coming up, which is like an opportunity for us to look at the week ahead and go, okay, so tomorrow there's a dentist appointment. Are you taking it? Am I taking it? You know, like, okay, and then I have to work late or whatever, and we can talk about, my husband and I, who also I work with every day, about all of the things that are happening in our business and our home, and our kids, who kind of lose attention at this point, you know, are like, kind of like, oh, mommy and daddy do things. Okay, we're gonna go have a fight now or whatever, you know? And then if we get to it, we always do those first two C's, but if we get to it, then we have conversation. This week's conversation is gonna be about what video game we purchased. Because we've regulated this meeting, they know that there's a container for these sort of conversations. And that weekly meeting is not just about negative things, it's also about positive things. And there's always a weekly touch point of like affirmation and just understanding of what the week holds. We have other sort of cadenced meetings, but I will end there. I'll stop.
I'm sure everyone wants to hear, but
And I would love to add too.
Yeah.
So because I noticed something in myself that switched when I had kids and with work, because I always felt like I had to be a strong woman leader, and you have to always have this like infallible like outside. And what I realized is that actually vulnerability is really important, both as a leader and as a mom. So it's like, hey, I need help at work. I'm really vulnerable right now. I need you guys to like get this together because my kids are sick all week and I have less time. So how can I share that and say, hey, I'm actually struggling, so God needs you guys to really pitch in. And then on the flip side, sometimes you come home, you've had a hard day at work, and you're snappy with your kids, or you're short, and you're like, oh, that's not your fault. Hey guys, I had a hard day at work. Mom's tired today. So it's that like vulnerability on both sides.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's also just those things too of like, I like how the common theme too here has been being present for both, because I do think that's something I struggle with a lot of times is, you know, sort of hearing things happening while I'm working, because now I do both. I commute into the city and I work from home, whereas before I was just gone, you know, and sometimes that is hard. And the vulnerability part too, yeah, it's just, I found as being a mom, when people come to you, I'm definitely an empath. I will talk about emotions all day long. They don't scare me if anyone wants to come to me with problems. Like, but I do think there is just that extra layer, you know, after you've been a parent, of someone coming to you with, you know, a struggle or stress at work, and instead of being frustrated of like, let's pull it together and get going, you know, it really is like a softer way, I think, you know, that changes. And I'm curious, did you all sort of have kids first and then start as leaders, or were you leaders first and then had kids? And was that a consideration, I guess? You know, sometimes I think I've been asked too, like, well, when you have your career, like, what is that consideration of like starting a family when you're, like you were saying, your restaurant's your baby, your shop is your baby, your company is your baby, you know, and how do you make that decision? Like, now it's time. Or maybe you don't make the decision, it just happens, you know?
Or it just happens. My first child, I was not in food. So at the time, I was like, oh, I want to have a kid, and I would like to have a kid with you. Okay, that was our only planned child. The other two children arrived, and and the third one, I was pregnant when I had made the transition and we opened the store. I was pregnant with our third, and so he was delivered like 6 months into life.
Did any of you have that decision sort of like having career first and then, you know?
Yeah, we did. I mean, so when we actually started, so I was a crazy person when I had my first kid. So we were starting our company. I was in business school getting my MBA, and I was also working a full-time job because I couldn't afford to start the business. We bootstrapped our company for the first 10 years, and the only way that we could afford to do it was for me to continue working a full-time job. So literally had 2 full-time jobs, was pregnant and getting an MBA, and I walked my graduation when I was 7 months pregnant with my first kid. And so I think for me, having my daughter, my first daughter, it was intentional. And I think I was like, let's get it all in before she arrives. And so then I can like focus more. And I will say the years that I had both of my daughters were actually really great years for the business because it makes you focus. And that's like something at Tilit we say all the time, focus, focus, focus. And so I think because I was like, I'm laser like focused on this aspects of the business, I'm laser like focused on this aspect of my family life, and we're just gonna make it happen. I think they can go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started my business in 2010. No kids, no husband. I had the boyfriend, and he then became the husband. But so I started that, and then we opened our first brick and mortar in 2014. And the day we opened, I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So it was kind of this like, and now my life will never be the same. And it just like, I mean, women are so strong. And it just like, it took me a day, and then I was like, okay, this is my reality. And it, and then the rest is kind of history. But I do think that having the good batch first really gave, I mean, I gave that thing my all, and I still do, but I genuinely think that it was kind of an awakening to what being a mother and a caretaker of many and all is. And it also then, when Roxy and then eventually Josephine came along, my husband and I were so well versed in like dealing with things and problem solving that I feel like the parenting, we were really prepared for it. And then, yeah.
Yeah, you had some of those communication skills already built up with like navigating
we were, like, having
difficult
meetings
decisions.
and difficult decisions, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was a really, and it's not to say it can't work the other way, because it sounds like the child came later.
Yes.
There's a whole other, there's ways to do it, but for
Yeah.
us, we were so young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Hillary, because your hours that you work as an executive chef differ from a lot of working moms' hours. And how do you still create, I know that you talked about it a little when we all spoke, those special moments with Rowan outside of a traditional hours and schedules, and like when are those moments? I know you said, well, maybe I miss bedtime, but we have this time together that we stay consistent, or
I'm up with him every morning.
yeah, the morning's your time.
Morning's my time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Today it was a little earlier than I expected.
It usually is.
It always is. And we do the mornings, and we just have that time at breakfast and chasing him around this morning. I just have socks in my pocket at all times, like waiting for the moment that he like lets his
I'm glad
guard
it's
down.
not just me, because that's me every morning. I
He had to
know.
put socks on, Ernie Banks broccolini, which is this bear first, and then and we had to undress Ernie Banks broccolini too. But
I should try that.
Yeah, I mean, he got the bear down, and we were like having this moment. And I was like, awesome, I'm going to get him dressed today successfully. And I have a thing which, when my wife goes away, I kind of figure out the patterns a little bit more that him and I can be on. I know that I need to put his pants on right off at the bat, like otherwise we're never going to get them on. And I do swim class with him, and I psychotically signed him up for soccer so that him and I can go to, I know he's not even 2, but it's great. We're going to soccer on Saturdays, and those are the moments. And this Friday I was home for dinner, and last Friday I was kind of like, we're good. Everyone's good at work. Everyone's good. They're like, we're good. I said, I'm going to go. And I got up and I went home. And I picked him up from daycare. And, I told you guys this, the look of surprise on his face was
So sweet.
was amazing, but also like, man, you're right.
Yeah.
That means I don't do this enough.
Right.
I know I drop you off. I know the teachers. I did pizza for the class the other day where I dropped them off doughs and they made pizzas. I'm trying to be present when I can't be present.
Yeah.
And now the school wants me to come in and do pizzas for everybody. I was like, oh, cool, okay, there's a lot of you, but no problem. I can just teach his class, right? There's 12 of them.
Yeah.
But the mornings are really fun. I open that door every morning, I tap on it, and he smiles and jumps around. And,
Aw.
and that's where we have to make the time. I mean, my wife does take a lot of those nights, and sometimes they get really lonely for her, which is hard. She's like, they FaceTime her parents every night. Every night they FaceTime because he knows them, and he gets so excited But you know what it's like to have a 2-year-old. Some
Yeah.
days he wants to eat, some days he doesn't. Some days he's like, I hate you, and I'm going to run around and pull your hair.
Yeah.
So, so I think I get the better.
Yeah.
I think he's really happy in the morning.
Yeah,
So-
I do mornings too. My husband does nights, which is nice because after work, it's hard. You know, I am physically there, but it's harder to be present versus the morning. And my daughter now, you know, if I try and do bedtime because I'm like, oh, I can do it and I get to do it. This is going to be fun. She takes my hand and she walks me out the door and then she closes the door. And I'm like, I carried you for 9 hours. And she'll just be like, get out, you know? And I'm like, are you 18? She's 2, you know? It just, so I think another thing I know that was tough for me after coming back to work as a new mom after, you know, I only have one, but for some of you for your first, curious to hear, you know, I think there's still a lot that we can do just as working women in every industry of supporting people when they come back from whether it's a week later, 4 months later, whatever that means for the job you're in. And you know, I'm curious, like, what helped you transition back into the workplace? And then is there anything you think that we could do better, you know, just even with our teams or where we work? And maybe, Jenny, we can start with you first.
I mean, universal health care and universal child care would be a start. The United States government.
It'll be a good one to start with here.
But yeah, I mean, so I honestly didn't take much maternity leave with either of my kids, and in some ways I regret it. But the second baby actually was it was sort of a forced reverse maternity leave because she was 6 months old when COVID started. And obviously our business fell into crisis because we saw orders canceled overnight, e-commerce sales go to zero because every restaurant across the country was closed. So, and then I was like, okay, I have no childcare. I have to pivot my entire business, and I have a 6-month-old and a 3.5-year-old. What is going to happen now? Thankfully, Grandma came and lived in our house, and between watching Cuomo on TV and whatever, we were, you know, she pitched in. But anyways, so yeah, you know, I think for me now that the company is more established, we are scaling, we luckily have brought on investors and have capital and all these kind of things. We have 4 months of paid maternity or paternity leave, basically just paid family leave in general. I do encourage people to take it, and I do encourage conversations before they're going on leave. I'll be like, what's your support system? I'll just ask them, how do you need help? What are you thinking? Like, have you thought about how you're gonna transition back? Just so that they're also thinking about it and saying, like, I'm gonna give you grace because I've been here and it's not easy. And if you wanna talk about what your plan is, then we can have those conversations. I am blessed and lucky that we are able to have a flexible work schedule. Actually, our office hours are 10 to 5 specifically because we have a lot of working parents, and I know how hard it is to be at work and on meetings at 9 a.m. So I am intentionally flexible, and again, we're blessed and a little bit different than say like a restaurant. On the flip side of that, I will say that I am out 3 to 4 nights a week going to visit clients, going to events. I'm traveling a lot. So I also, you know, get the guilt from like, where were you? And oh, you've been gone so much from my 7-year-old. So yeah, so I think it's just like having those conversations. Hey, we have these 4 months. You should use them. You should think about how you're going to use them, and you should think about what you want your phase back to look like. And I try to have those conversations the whole lead up to when I know somebody is going to be taking leave.
I love that, yeah. Having that conversation ahead of time versus just thinking about it once they're back and
ahead of
transitioning
time.
in. Yeah, anyone else, what was that experience like for you? And
I took very little time off. There's a photo of me with Roxy like strapped to my chest, and I'm doing a wedding cake. Well, we were like we were all babies. And I took more time with my second, and we've had, I think, 2 women take maternity leave, and I have my first paternity leave this summer, and we're just, you know, obviously preparing for that and supporting it. But in the bakery, like leaving, you know, that's a huge puzzle we have to figure out in a kitchen. Like there's just, it needs to be covered. But I like this idea of like really planning ahead, and also just understanding and giving space and grace for the fact that just the early months, and for me, even just like the first 3 years of being a parent is so hazy, and it's so bootstrap figure it out, and there's, you can plan ahead, but just also having the mindset both as an employer and going through it myself is it's a bit of madness. And like, you just have to cobble together the care, and it's really expensive, but you just do it. And figure it out. And so we're just giving space for that on both sides.
Yeah, I remember when I, first went back, I was still so hazy in my brain, the hormones, like everything, and that fear of like, will I be able to actually track like a difficult conversation? Well, am I like okay to be making big decisions? Because you do feel so just.
But it's just
you can.
Sleep is off, but it goes back to just being present. Like,
exactly.
Present as possible in and places. But it's
and you're like, okay,
a haze.
I got this.
It's a bit of a haze.
Yeah. I'm curious for the two of you, has there been anything as, working parents that you just didn't, probably a lot you didn't expect that you've had to learn, but has there been anything that you were like, no one told me that? No one told me that. I had no idea.
Like everything.
Yeah. I do think we have people here too that maybe aren't yet moms, but are interested in, is there any advice you would say?
From
the people want to know.
To sit here for hours. Share. No, from delivery to the recovery to like what's happening to your body to what's happening to your brain, like. We have a new moms group that I started from the hospital bed with that third baby, because I was like, 6 months in. There was a new moms group in our neighborhood that I attended with our first child and was instrumental to my survival at that time. And that it ceased to exist because the business model is not great. It's like you have to rent a place, you don't know if people are gonna come. I was like, I have a place. I will do this, and fill this void in our neighborhood. And so it's now been running for 6 years. We've like served so many moms who are doing the exact like process that I would like to see strangers into neighbors, into friends, into family.
I know, I want to write that down. Yeah.
Amazing to watch because like you see them in the street hanging out. And you're like, you met in the new moms group. Anyway, all that to say, I think like just listening to hundreds of birthing stories, like creating space to like actually talk about what just happened to your body, like a train ran through it. That's what happened. And like to talk about all the feelings that go with that is the beginning. And people don't even realize that that's like worthy of space, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting very emotional because like it's been a wonderful social experiment to observe. But as far as like things that you should know, I mean, there's just so many things. Here's the thing, ask a lot of questions, right? And like, because there's so many things that we just don't have the time to go through, it's like, it's okay. The things that I didn't know is like, it's okay to feel crazy. It's okay. Everybody felt crazy when they passed a child through, or even if they adopted a child, that process, that labor of going into a system to like bring another child into your family is crazy making. And be kind to yourself. I just didn't realize, like I thought like I was gonna have a kid and approach it like work. Right. Like I've got a checklist, I'm gonna do these things, I'm gonna read this book, and it's gonna be like this. And it's like, no, you are holding space for a human. And they are imperfect and they are still learning their motor skills. Like they don't know how to eat, they don't know how to do so many things. And so why would you expect it to be this transactional experience? It's not. It's messy, and that's okay. It's very normal. Okay? Cool.
I had a 12-tab Excel spreadsheet before I had my daughter of all the things I needed to like do, get, prepare for.
Right.
There's a lot of things that were not on that spreadsheet.
Just because how can you control, like all of this comes out of a space of control, right? And like being able to manage and like hit your goals and exceed your goals and do all that. You can't do that with kids. Because you don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. You know, and like your job as the parent is to hold the space to learn who they are and then figure out how to adapt your life to support it. And like actually I got into food, maybe this is like antithetical from some people, but I got into food so that I could do that. Because in my previous life working in the nonprofit space, like it's really very hard to be able to raise 3 humans and then like make magic happen on like a shoestring budget, It's really hard. So I was like, I need to be my own employer. I need to fill this void in my neighborhood in a food, like this culinary gap. And I need to be able to be there for my kids so that I can learn who they are and then support them accordingly. And so if you don't have kids, like think about that, right? Think about how do I make my life nimble enough? How do I financially plan for that? How do I like, what are the things that I'm learning at work that are transferable, so that I can pivot if I need to, so that when I am ready to have the child, I can respond accordingly if I need to,
That's great advice, yeah.
So like holding that basketball stance, on the court, just like constantly on your toes.
Yeah. Any advice, Hillary, for anyone working in the restaurant industry right now that really wants to start a family and, things like that?
You should.
Yeah.
I have a lot of single moms in the kitchen, and I might have a little bit of a soft spot, obviously, for them. And I really, I might take care of them just a little bit better in that. I'm running late today, and I have a couple of people from Hot Bread Kitchen that went through that program that came to us, and there's a lot. That's even a totally different situation than some of the other single moms, and they are in a position where they're late every day. And I finally sat them down and was like, "Can I change your schedule? What can I do for you that you're gonna not make me fire you, unfortunately, because I'm going to have to fire you at some point if you can't get to work on time. So tell me what you need." I think it's really important. I left my last restaurant, which I was a partner in for almost 7 years, to open Siamo, but also to work in a different group that I'd never worked in before, in a larger group, knowing that my wife and I were talking about having a family. So that we had a little bit more of a support system. My wife works for Italy, so she works for a large company, and has a great, health benefits and leave, and she took 6 months off.
Oh, that's amazing.
5.5 or whatever it was, somewhere around that time. But I took off not enough time when she had the baby, of course, and then I took a month off. And we actually took him to Italy and spent 3 weeks there, and in her happy place where she lived when she lived there. So it was a really great coming home moment for her. But working in kitchens is really hard. Those AM positions, I don't know if you feel this too, Lauren, right now, they're coveted. AM, no one wants to work at night anymore. No one. I mean, I don't even want to work at night anymore. Once the sun goes down, I am tired.
That's why I'm a baker.
We have to change the lights. It's dark now, and I can't believe this. But we really tried to fill those roles for the parents that needed. And one of my sous chefs had a baby a couple of weeks after we did, and we made sure we planned for him. We helped him. He took his time, and I think it's really just being there for your team. And I think as a parent, I can show that it is possible. I know I have more of a flexible schedule than an hourly employee. If I want to come in at 6, who's going to tell me not to, right? My job is going to get done. So that's a little bit of a harder position for some of the hourlies, but we definitely, those single moms out there, we take care of immensely.
Yeah.
And my chefs will do the same. Not because I tell them to, but because they understand what these people do for our organization, and they're we can't do it without them. And if they need to drop their kid off or go to parent-teacher conference, or one of our members had fighting with the ex-husband for alimony, had to go to court, and am I going to make her use a vacation day for that?
Yeah.
No. Why would I take her money away because she has to go fight for what she, she doesn't even care. She just wants her child. So we're really we're open. I run a kitchen that you can tell me whatever you want. You can tell me that you hate me. You can tell me you love me. You can tell me whatever it is. I might give you my opinion, but most of the time, someone just wants to be heard and acknowledged.
Yeah.
And they just want a hug most of the time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who they are. All 75 of them, honestly, they just want a hug.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be the person to do it, then let's do it.
Yeah. So the takeaway is go work for Hillary. If you learned anything today.
We have plenty of space.
Yeah. Jenny, Anna, I'd love to hear too. Yeah, any advice you might have for someone working and venturing into motherhood?
I mean, I think it is that vulnerability again. It's being able to say, I need this because I have to be able to do this with my family, and here's how I'm going to make up for it, right? So we have, I have a guy who works for me who has to leave every day at 4, and then so he's like, but I will be back online at 6:30 to finish my day, and that's fine. Get your stuff done. I don't care. Just be honest with me and tell me what you need. And I think that also comes from a position of the leader being vulnerable to be able to say, communicate and say, this is what I'm struggling with today. This is how I'm making it all work. And I need you guys to give me grace. And then also giving yourself grace too, because we are gonna fuck it up sometimes. We are gonna mess it up sometimes, and that's okay. But just, I think, giving grace to yourself, to your team, and saying what it is, open communication.
Yeah.
Agreed. That And also Brene Brown's Dare to Lead was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
Like, here's how to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
step by step.
Yeah.
So just if anyone
Yeah.
wants that. So that, and then for me, just to add on is, now that my kids have, again, kind of like latched into the public school system and we're not so hands-on with the childcare, has been scheduling in a permanent way time for myself and having, because I felt like a two-legged stool, which is not a stool. It's something that will collapse. I felt like I was working home, and so I've been really focusing on building in structure for me, and sometimes that's I walk home and it's an hour, or I schedule girls' dinners, or time to just be in my own space and head and outside, and but the more time that I can balance in space for myself, and that might be working on a hobby or with other people, is I'm a better mom for it. And not feeling like that's a selfish thing to do, but it's actually like everybody rises when I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just adding on to that, I mean, Petrushka and I were talking about this too before we started, is like also scheduling a date night with your partner is so important. So it's even though you feel like, oh, I don't have time to do it, we are very scheduled. I have like a scheduled date night every single Thursday night. We try not to ever change it. I have yoga I do yoga every morning at 8:15 as soon as the kids are gone. It's like just being very scheduled to have those, hey, this is my 45 minutes for me. This is my 1 hour a week where I'm just alone with my partner to just do our own thing aside from the family. I think makes you a better, more well-rounded leader and family.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
time for a few questions now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Anyone have a question?
Go ahead. I say, if Jenny will allow me, I'd like to just make a couple comments.
Okay.
Oh, we'd love to hear those. We would love to.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I really, when I saw on Instagram that Jenny was on this wonderful panel, I wanted to come and hear it because some of us fought other motherhood battles decades ago, and I was like, I just want to know what it's like for women today. And so I'm so happy that you guys have these opportunities, but you also have some of the same struggles that we fought in the 70s and the 80s. So just a couple things flashed through my brain. One was in 1979 when I was pregnant with Jenny's brother, telling the director of HR, I'm in education, that I got 6 weeks of maternity leave, that it was a federal law, and they had to hold my job. And so he looked at me, this was in Georgia, and said, Dearie, don't get upset in your condition.
Oh my gosh.
But they held my job. And then there were other things, like they called them the mommy wars. You can look it up, Newsweek would, I don't know if anybody remembers that. And I remember with Jenny when she was in, I don't know, like maybe 5th grade, they had an overnight field trip, and we had to bring the kids to school at 6 in the morning. And so I was standing next to her friend, Stacy's mom, Anita, and we were dressed for work, in mostly gray suits and white button-down shirts then. And there were a group of women that were near us and wearing sweatsuits, curlers, and I overheard one of them say, wow, those women got dressed up to send their kids off to school. And so, I'm now the mahjong playing grandma. I'm so happy to be there. But thank your mothers. And
Shout out to the single moms. I was raised by a single mom, so shout out to the single moms who are working and doing it all.
Fighting the battles for child care. There wasn't such a thing. And all those other things. And the neighbors, our neighbors were amazing.
Yeah.
So
Still is a village.
the
Well, you did a
neighbors-
great job.
So thank you, and thank all of you for carrying the torch.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we actually have at BentoBox at our office, we have a nursing room where there's a comfortable couch, there's a refrigerator for milk, you can lock the door. It's a very calming, like clean, nice space. And I was telling my mother-in-law about that because she said, when she was working, she was just, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And then she's trying to like pump in the bathroom stall quickly, and so we're very grateful for those, who sort of helped us pave the way before. And yeah. Any other questions? Yeah?
You mentioned a lot about having a special soft spot, if you will, for certain employees that might have parental needs in a various capacity. And I'm curious, as you all think about growing your business and revenue drivers, new projects, new partners, do you also have a soft spot for doing business with other parents or taking on projects that other parents are running? To the extent possible, of course.
Good question.
I'm like, what does that look like for us? I mean, I think we're a very collaborative company, so we're like, from flavor collaborations to, I don't know, any number of things that are happening in our store. We do a lot of programs too. So I don't know, I mean, I feel like that question maybe is not the best for me to answer, but I will say that in anything that I do, I'm always looking for synergy and like-minded value, like overlap. And parenting, my motherhood brand is very strong. I have learned in the last week, somebody said I should call you because you're a mom and I'm a mom and I'm having a hard time at work. And it's like, okay, I had no idea. But so I'm always looking to work like whenever possible with people that understand that our fundamental existence here on this earth is to tend to life. Like, if you're an employer, if you're a parent, like we are all in the business of people and people raising and tending and cultivating. And so and the manifestation of that looks different in a domestic space versus a professional space. But at the end of the day, we're all just humans trying to like make it here, So I only want to collaborate with people, maybe their parents or whatever, or maybe they're educators like that understand that at the core of everything.
Anyone else on the panel?
I love working. I mean, I think that there's just a common denominator, right? Yeah. So like you already have an immediate connection with that person, and then what you do with that connection is how you build something, right? Without a connection, without the beginning of vulnerability, right? We're not, and I need help every day, and I'm the first person in the kitchen to help somebody or ask for help. And I think setting those standards and like I think that kind of, you're seeking out people that believe those things. We have a rule, there's no heroes, right? And, you need, I mean, a lot of times the cooks that won't ask for help usually don't want to work for a woman. I'll be honest. Like, I'm sure that you might find this the same way. That a lot of the cooks out there that still believe in that kind of archaic testosterone-driven, like, energy in kitchens, they don't go work for a woman. Because that's not, whether we all have our days, and I get tired and frustrated and short, we still don't run a kitchen that way. So I think it kind of brings people in, that you begin that conversation with, you have there's a common denominator, and then you can kind of build on that. But yeah, I think it's a great way to meet other people too, right?
Yeah.
And kind of keep building whatever your next project is.
Yeah.
So thank you all for a really illuminating and wonderful conversation. You all talked about how mothering and parenting affected your leadership styles and vice versa. I'm curious, from Petrushka and Anna in particular, how has being a mom or a parent affected your product lines? Are your kids your testers, tasters? How does that work?
That was a good one.
So it's funny. My kids are just picky eaters, and a lot of the things that I develop, they're just like, no, mom, it's too whatever. And so I do make things that they like, but a lot of the things that I'm developing, for instance, right now I'm about to launch a sourdough cookie, and they're just like, so even though they eat the sourdough bread that I make for them at home, they're like, they can't like turn their heads on. And so if anything, it's kind of like thickened my skin a little bit to be like, okay, just because my kids don't like it, I think New Yorkers will. And there's this one cookie, there's this one product that when my daughter, my youngest, was like going to daycare around the school when she was really little, and she came to the bakery every morning, and I wanted to make like a breakfast cookie, and so henceforth, we launched this the breakfast banana bun, and it's still like a huge seller at our shop. And she never actually liked it. So I don't know. I'm at a loss. Like, and so I just give them more time at home, and like we make ice cream at home, and they help me with the bread, but. I probably should be more thoughtful in like developing my menu around them. But like, I don't know, it seems to be working where the more I make that they don't like, the better it is out in the market.
Yeah, they guide you in the other direction. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a similar. Our kids don't have any say. What we're doing, go and look at the case and see what has been created and pick your favorite, you know? And the thing is actually that's very ironic is that a lot of their friends have more of our ice cream than they do, which is like people don't understand that, and they don't understand that, and they're like, it's not fair. And I'm like, well, see, our proximity is very close, and so if I just opened the door, the freezer door, the proverbial and literal freezer door, like you wouldn't have the same relationship that actually your friends are having with this thing that we make every day, and so they can only really have ice cream when their friends come over, or like maybe it's like a weekend and we're doing like our family movie night or whatever, you know, but it's not every week. The point is, because we own the ice cream shop, they don't get ice cream all the time. and so it's actually their life is worse, you know? That's how they.
You can't use it as a bribe.
No,
I'll give you ice
no,
cream
yeah,
if you.
I don't do that. I might bribe for other things, like with other things, but ice cream is not one of them. So, oh well.
Keeps it special.
Yeah, I will say my kids have also influenced our product. So we launched kids aprons after we had kids, and the first ones that we had were super neutral. A lot of like, look, chefs really wear gray and black and navy blue, and so we made the kids aprons like that. And my oldest daughter was like, they're just not that much fun, and we're like, ouch. But then we relaunched them in these like bright, fun ombre colors, and now they're New York Times wire cutter best pick for like kids' kitchen supplies. So she was right, mea culpa, but. So the kids have influenced it, but I also think in general, raising children around a business or around women in leadership position where you're a partner executive chef and they're watching you make these hard decisions and like sort of struggle with them and figure out how to balance is really, really good for them.
So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time for one more question. I just want to say thank you first. I think you guys have been all so inspirational. But to touch upon what you were saying about kind of passing the torch, it's amazing to see 4, 5 really amazing women who are at leadership positions. But what are you guys doing? Because as somebody who's come from 2 careers in very male-dominated industries, it's wonderful to have you guys at the top. But what are you doing to cultivate that mindset of inclusiveness and awareness of families and the needs that it requires in the men in your team so that we can keep passing that torch. It's wonderful to have you guys, but what do you do when you're presented with it, unfortunately, as we go on?
I think when you're in a leadership role, obviously you have the agency to impact the tone and tenor of how things are going, and to set expectations about what we will do and what we won't be doing. And our company, the majority of our workforce is very young. I actually just learned recently that somebody on our leadership team is pregnant. And it's like, cool, this is going to be a first for us. And how am I going to hold space for her? And how is that going to be a message to our team, how we hold space for this person? To deliver her child and have the opportunity to be present for that child when that child comes. And her circumstances are not my circumstances when I had my first child. So it's going to be a lot more effort that we have to do as a company to hold her and to like support her in this new transition of life. That said, like, I'm like, all I can say is like, I set the tone by my actions, and you're either listening or you don't work here. And so that's my answer, you know? And people they take heed because they know like the culture of the company that we're building. And it is very focused on people. Like at the end of the day, what is a patriarchy or matriarchal system if we're all just focused on people? If we're all holding space for all of the needs of people and all our differences as well, right? Like we can just kind of be in this neutral space. It's an idyllic thought, but you know, I think if we are tethered to that, then we can not be so polarized.
I mean, I think that's a really good question because my partner in the business and I talk about this all the time because it's great to sit in an echo chamber and talk to a bunch of women about how to support women, but how do you really get the men to actually buy into that? And I think it's creating the same sort of space for those men to also embark on some of these parental rights. They should be taking the 4 months, the 12 weeks, the 16 weeks, the whatever, and asking them, are you doing this? You should do this, and you should just plan for it, and we should have these discussions. And then I think to have the male leaders buy into that, like my partner talks all the time about like how do men support women. And then the other thing I will say is like when you are a woman in a leadership position and you see something wrong, you should call it out. Like when we closed a Series A for our business 2 years ago in this venture capital world, where even only 2% of women get funded and only 17% of male and female couples get funded. I'm like pissed thinking about this. And in the venture capital funding documents that everybody has to sign, there's something saying that you have to disclose if you're gonna go out on leave. And that's like specifically hurting women. So my lawyer's like, call them out on that bullshit and get it out of the docs, and we did.
Wow.
I think feeling empowered that the times are changing. You don't have, like, I think sometimes when we're in jobs or situations where we don't feel that is available to us, there's a fear of leaving. Like, what will I do? Where will I go? I need the financial security. But just, I think even hearing from other women that there are places you can go, that it is acceptable, it is okay, you do have that space, and you should never, you can advocate for yourself, and you should never feel stuck, you know, in a place where you don't think you're getting that. Because I remember I was applying for a role, this was about 12 years ago in a restaurant where the person interviewing me said, well, I used to not invest in female leaders because they would just have kids and I'd lose my investment, but times are changing and they stay at work now. And I was like, I'm not working for you.
Wow.
And that's only 12 years ago. To your point of like a lot of change has happened, but we're still not there. And so also it's like, it's our responsibility as leaders to, you know, push people to feel the same way, whatever gender or what you are, but also like you can go somewhere where you feel supported. Like it's okay to, you know, like you will be okay. Because I know I felt that fear before in jobs too of like, what will I do or where will I go? Like you will be okay, you know?
I mean, it's our job to teach.
Yeah.
We have to create the next round of leaders.
Yeah.
I hire every person that I hire, and I look at them and I'm like, will they be the person to take my job? It is my job to train them to take my job. And if they won't, they don't need to. They don't have to. Most of them don't want it. But it is my job to teach them that way. And by way of that, they have to have the same beliefs that I do. Otherwise, the food's not going to be the same. The kitchen won't be the same. And I think there's just a lot of like people that forget that it is our job.
Yeah.
We don't just have these large teams or any teams, right? For them not to grow with us.
Yeah.
They don't just want to come in and make the same salad every day. They want to know why I created that salad, how I'm going to create the next salad, and how they're going to get to the next station and the continuous growth. Because otherwise, we are not doing our jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
And I will tell you one thing, just totally unrelated to that. When we had our child, there's no partner box on the New York State birth certificate.
Yeah.
I'm the father.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
So up.
Yeah, it's so.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So
I mean, I believe it, but
yeah,
that's
It is.
in New
upsetting.
York State, there's no box. It just says, so that's where I am. I'm the father.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then you put it in a weird box, and then that comes back. But like, we have to change these things.
Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much.